G'day guys and welcome back to your English Aussie. If you don't already know why Game Week 30 is a crucial week to Wildcard, I've left a link up above and in the description to my own Game Week 30 Wildcard team where I explain why it's so crucial to use and how this will help you gain rank on your fellow managers. This will be my last video on rating your wildcard teams before I do a final post FA Cup wildcard team of my own for you guys. So if you got any questions about your wildcard teams up until then, post below in the comments and I'll be replying to all of your comments to answer any questions you've got over your wildcard teams. So let's get straight into it. And the first manager up to review today is Manos Forlidas. Micro Beach 7 is the team name. His team value is 105.4 million. And the chips used so far is the assistant manager chip. If you want to catch him on socials, he is at Manos Forlidas on Twitter. And looking at this team, I really like it. The first thing I see here, triple Newcastle, triple Palace for that Game Week 32 double. Obviously, that's really important. They are the only two teams that are going to play 10 games left in the season. If Palace fail to get through the FA Cup, both those teams will play 10 and will not blank at any stage in the season. Obviously, if Palace do make it through, it's likely that they'll be blanking in Game Week 34 and having two sets of doubles over the upcoming weeks. I think one of the key things to look at in this team and sort of to think about for your team, because I think the team looks fantastic. I don't have too many changes that I would make to it, is to think about what week you're going to use your bench boost chip in and how that's going to be played. And assuming that you are going to be using it in Game Week 33, then obviously you're just hoping the FA Cup results come out the right way round. The one thing that I would maybe suggest is having a look at your goalkeepers, perhaps Kepa and Sells. I think Nottingham Forest, even if they do win and get through, they will be unlikely to be doubling in Game Week 33. And maybe I'll just show you guys a quick stat up on the screen here that shows sort of the predicted fixtures for Game Week 34 and what happens and why the Nottingham Forest may not be blanking. The reason for this is essentially that in Game Week 33, Nottingham Forest play on the Monday of Game Week 33 already. And then if they do make it through to the next round of the FA Cup, they will be playing on the Saturday as well. So it's quite unlikely that if they do make it through, that double against Brentford will move into 33. It's more likely that they either play a little bit later in Game Week 34 in the single after the FA Cup, or they double in 35 or 36, which is probably quite likely as well. The other things to consider just while I'm on this is Aston Villa, Man City. So Man City versus Aston Villa, the double will most likely go into 33 or 36, because outside of that, i.e. 35, 34, 32, all of those game weeks, there are UEFA Champions League matches. Villa at the moment are through to the next round against PSG. The same goes for Arsenal against Real Madrid, and the same goes for Manchester United as well in the Europa League. So all three of those teams are unlikely going to be doubling in any of the other game weeks. It's really only 33 or 36 that those doubles can slide into due to their other commitments. Therefore, if those teams go through the FA Cup, it's more than likely than not that they will be doubling in Game Week 33. With Brighton v West Ham and Southampton v Fulham, there is a chance that if Brighton beat Nottingham Forest or if Fulham beat Crystal Palace, that there is still a chance that they double in Game Week 33. But there is also opportunities for them to just have that single in Game Week 34 in the midweek, or potentially double in 35 or 36, given that they're not in any European competitions, either teams in those games, and therefore could play midweek. It's not a huge game, and maybe could be on at the same time as those televised Champions League games. Obviously, historically, they have tried to move these games outside of when the Champions League matches are, so they don't have TV scheduling clashes. However, as we saw in game week 32 with Newcastle and Palace, there is now sort of prerogative for that to happen, as they have already pushed that into the game week. So moving back to this team rating, and then based off that, just maybe one more thing to consider, obviously, is Sells and Kepa in goal. Perhaps you want to have a sort of 2 goalkeepers that will be doubling in game week 33. So perhaps moving Sells to a Verbruggen or an Areola or a Raya, whichever team goes through, might be worth it, given that when you do bench boost in 33, at least you have your goalkeeper position that you can get a double-double basically out of that. I think that's going to be a really important position for your wildcard teams, especially if the FA Cup fixtures don't work out the way that we want, which I think for a very good bench boost, you want Bournemouth to be winning and Crystal Palace to be winning in the FA Cup. That's really the main way of getting an excellent bench boost for game week 33. I think Brighton also beating Nottingham Forest does help there as well if that fixture goes into 33. So for me, I would recommend at least having 2 goalkeepers that double, because then you're going to gain that one fixture over the other managers for game week 33. Outside of that, I really do like this team, Manos. I think it's really fantastic. I don't have too many other suggestions. Obviously, look for the results of the FA Cup. If Nottingham Forest, for example, don't go through, maybe you're moving Elanga to a Minte or a Mitoma. Obviously, Sells potentially to a Verbruggen, Areola. Just keep an eye out for my wildcard team after the FA Cup results. I'll get it out ASAP. Comment in there if you've got any questions, or comment below in this video if you do have any follow-up questions. On to the second team that I do have, and that is Patrick Rykes. This guy, not only an FPL player, but also a very talented musician. So his team name is Liam Daddy City. His team value is 105.3 million, and chips used only the triple captain. Check him out on socials at InDelusion. So that is IN Delusion on Twitter. And also, as I was mentioning about his music, if you can check him out, he is also the same name at InDelusion on SoundCloud. Some of the music's really good. I've really enjoyed listening to a bit of it. So give him a big shout out and check that out if you have some time. Also, a shout out to the young lad Liam. When you decide to take up the challenge of FPL, hit us up. We'll make sure to help you out with your teams as well, mate. And guys, just a quick reminder, if you do enjoy this video, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It's just a small thing for you guys, but it really makes a huge difference to our small channel trying to grow. Thanks, really appreciate it. Looking at this team and noting that obviously you haven't used your assistant manager chip yet, which means to me, I think it's quite clear that you would wildcard in 30 and then look to use your assistant manager chip from 31 to 33. You'd be hoping that Palace are 5 places below Brighton in game week 31, so you can use it on Glasner and get a table boost. And then in 32, hopefully they also remain 5 places below Newcastle and Manchester City, and therefore you can use it also on Glasner for 2 table bonuses in game week 32. In 33, you can use a free transfer to switch that manager to whoever the best doubling manager will be in 33. And again, you get 5 usages out of that. For your team specifically, Paddy, you don't need to worry about picking sort of 13, 14 doublers to use in the bench boost, given that you're most likely not going to be bench boosting in 33, given you'll be using your assistant manager chip. So I think for you, your bench boost is going to be used, I think free hit clearly in 34, and then your bench boost is going to be used in sort of 35, 36. And what I'd probably recommend for your team is actually, assuming Nottingham Forest do go through in the FA Cup, is to use your bench boost in 35 or 36 in whichever week that double with Brentford is in, and have the two goalkeepers as Sells and Flecken. Therefore, you'll get the Nottingham Forest and Brentford, both teams that are doubling, and you'll get the two doubling goalkeepers in that double game week. And therefore, you get on your bench boost one extra doubler in comparison to other people. So it's still a good utilisation there, the bench boost. Sells is still a really nice goalkeeper option going forwards. Nottingham Forest have some fantastic defensive fixtures, and you're most likely going to be using him for the majority of those games. And then Brentford also towards the end of the season, in the last sort of 4 games, have some nice defensive fixtures with Man United, Ipswich, Fulham and Wolves in their last 4 games. So I think that's the way to get through your sort of chip strategy, bench boosts, etc. And again, I think you don't need to worry about putting in sort of 12, 13 doublers for your bench boost in 33. I think you'll be working to having a team of maybe 10 doublers in 33. You can afford to bench maybe your Newcastle players or sub them out if you've got some free transfers. Maybe Salah is your only single game week player in there. So looking at this team, I think really nice. You've got the 3 Newcastle for double game week 32. You got the 3 Palace for double game week 32. Again, assuming Bournemouth here and maybe Brighton go through, then at this moment and Palace as well. Then at this moment you'd be having 10 double game weekers plus Salah for 33. So for me, I think looks a really nice team. Obviously, if this isn't the way the results come out, perhaps Bournemouth don't go through. Maybe you need to look to switch up the sort of Kirkes and Clivert in 33 for perhaps somebody else. Potentially maybe another Arsenal defender. Potentially maybe a Brighton defender such as a Van Heck if they manage to go through, or again maybe sort of West Ham as well with Aaron Wan-Bissaka or Jared Bowen. So yeah, just keep those sort of guys in mind. Again, I think this team is really nice given that you don't need the sort of 13 bench boosters. Of course, by the time you get to 33, you could leave this team as is at the moment and then make those substitutions if you prefer. For example, Clivert and Kirkes, playing them against Ipswich, keep them in your team, and then maybe in game week 33 you'll save up 3-4 free transfers that you can use to move out some of those other players. So I think this is a really good draft, Paddy. I think for you, game week 30 wildcard is really nice because you don't have to worry too much about what week maybe the Brighton double goes into, because you don't need as many doublers for the bench boost. So yeah, really nice teammate, and good luck this week. Hopefully see you on the live stream. So moving on to my next team, and this is Chris Hyde. He is team name Leo Talks FPL. And his team value is 103.8. And he has used triple captain, bench boost, free hit, and AM. So he's used all of his chips so far this season, except for the wildcard 2. And check him out on socials. He is at Leo Hyde 56 on Instagram. And look, I think this is a very unique situation, but there are definitely people that have reached out to me that, for example, have played their free hits already, played some of their other chips. But yeah, I think in this situation, my advice is actually not to pick too many game week 34 blankers. So not to pick too many players that do double in 33 and blank in 34, as you don't have the free hit to manage that issue. I highly, highly recommend anyone that has the free hit already used. You must have 3 Newcastle players in your team. So that's the first thing I saw when looking at this team. Newcastle are the only team that have 10 fixtures and definitely do not blank at any point during the season. So they will be playing in 34 and you'll get their double in 32. And similarly will happen to Palace if they fall out of the FA Cup. So again, if Palace don't go through in the FA Cup, which is probably what you'll be hoping for, Chris, I would definitely make sure you have 3 Palace in your team, which you do have here. Because again, they'll have 10 games and no blanks. So I think looking at your team, the easy move to make for me is just moving Robinson to a Dan Burn or a Livramento. That gets you your third Newcastle player. If Palace don't go through the FA Cup, you got 6 players definitely going to be playing in game week 34, which is really nice and looks good for you in that sort of game week. Obviously, you've used all your other chips, so you don't need to be worrying about bench boosting. So my recommendation is probably about 5 to 6 double game weekers that you have in your team for game week 33. And then you can look to transfer sort of 2 or 3 of them, depending on how many free transfers you have at the time, out in that week and just bench 3 that will be blanking in 34. So at the moment, I think your team looks quite nice. You've got, say Bournemouth, Man City, Man United, West Ham are all doubling in 33. You got Guardiola, Kirkes, Kluivert, Fernandes, Bowen, and Mamouche. That's 6 doublers with Gabriel also as a 7th. Say Palace don't go through, then Gabriel won't be doubling. So that's 6 doublers. That works really nicely. You transfer 3 of them out in game week 33 in game week 34 even to players that will be in that team. You put the rest of the guys in your team, and then that looks really nice. For game week 34 as well. You should be able to manage through to the end of the season. Obviously, the trouble comes in your team if Palace don't make it through the FA Cup. Then you're going to have to cut down on some of those other doublers. I'd still recommend keeping the Palace players in your team, and then perhaps benching them for game week 34, or moving them. Or those are the guys that maybe you transfer out of your team in game week 34. Therefore, if they don't make it through, you've got 3 Palace, 1 Arsenal, and then out of those other players, the Guardiola, Kluivert, Mamouche, Fernandes, Bowen, you want to have really only 2 more that are doubling in 33. So maybe pick your favourite players out of those guys. And get rid of the rest and look for players that are playing and have good fixtures in 33 and 34. So overall there, Chris, I think good team. A couple of things to think about. Potentially if Palace do go through, maybe then a Raya and a Gabriel you move to potentially a Nottingham Forest if they don't make it through, because again, they have some really nice defensive fixtures going forwards. Could be some easy defensive moves to make there. And moving on to the next team, we got a 4th team today. It is Yatharth Patwa. Sorry, mate, if I got that name wrong. Correct me, please. His team name is Gold and Silver. Team value of 105.5 million. Chips used are the triple captain and the assistant manager chip so far. And his social is at Chess Quickies Econ on YouTube. So he mentioned to me that he likes to pick differentials in his team, not to try and change it too much, and just sort of give the advice on that. And I think that's great, Yatharth. I think I really like some of the differentials that you do have in this team. I think if you are a player that likes to play like that, take a few risks. I'm not going to try and change your team to be just like I would like it. I'm obviously a little bit risk averse sometimes. So yeah, I think some of these options are really good, and I'm going to treat it as if I'm sort of having your risk tolerance to here. So yeah, I think the key standouts for me that I see in this team, obviously you got 3 Newcastle. You only have 2 Palace. So I do think potentially the 3rd Palace might be useful to get into your team, regardless of sort of the risks that you want to take. If Palace do go through the FA Cup, you're going to get 2 doubles out of them. And especially if you're looking to bench boost in game week 33, I think definitely worth having a Palace guy in there. Another Palace guy in there. Outside of that, some 2 sort of key ones that I see here is Bukayo Saka of Arsenal and Asensio of Aston Villa, who are 2 really nice differentials. I think Asensio's a really nice pick. and someone I've definitely dabbled with having in my wildcard team as well. Obviously, a minute's risk for Aston Villa, but given he's been in such fantastic form, I think he's someone that like really could be a nice differential to go for on penalties for Aston Villa, scoring goals, being creative, and really been nice in their side, especially in the Champions League fixtures. Unfortunately, hasn't had so many minutes in the Premier League for them. But yeah, it could be a really nice differential. Villa will definitely be doubling in 33, potentially 36. So someone nice to have in your side there. Saka, if fit for game week 30, could be quite interesting as an option. I think this sort of having Saka in your team sort of means you have to go Mamouche over Haaland. Maybe you can't quite fit Saka, Salah, Haaland, then Mateta and Isak as well. And my concern for Saka, and the one reason why I wanted to give this feedback for you, even though I know you like a bit of differential, is I think his minutes will be managed over the next few weeks to get him ready for those Champions League games versus Real Madrid. Now, I do think in game week 33, 34, in that double, he might play the full minutes and quite a lot, especially as I sort of expect, sorry to any Arsenal fans, but I do expect Real Madrid to beat Arsenal in the Champions League. So potentially it's something that you can look at, maybe bringing Saka in game week 33. You'll know the results, whether they've beaten or lost to Real in 32. And then you'll sort of have a little bit more of an idea of whether he's going to be in there. And I think Fulham, Everton, Brentford over the next 3 weeks, his minutes might get a little bit managed given they have the Champions League fixtures with Real Madrid. And then if you want to bring him in for 33, that's really the week for him. You've got Ipswich, and then maybe they'll double with Crystal Palace as well in that 33. So that's something to think about. Maybe you just don't like that because he's too much of a minute's risk, and then you go Haaland and potentially you move down Saka to somebody else. Maybe even a Mikel Moreno in that Arsenal team if you are looking for somebody in that Arsenal team. Moreno's obviously been starting up front in that number 9, number 10 role for Arsenal. So could be somebody as another differential. I know you like the differentials that you could look to bring into the team. And I know you did leave one option for me at the back, which was sort of Livramento, Aina, Estepinian as a 3 at the back. And I think if Brighton obviously beat Nottingham Forest, maybe Aina switches to an Estepinian. That gives you another doubler potentially for game week 33 to then use your bench boost in that week. Maybe you even move the bench boost to a 35 or a 36 where Nottingham Forest will be doubling. So yeah, just some things to consider. I think wherever you do bench boost, I think the best option will be to have 2 doubling goalkeepers in that week. So try and think of your goalkeepers as quite as an important position for your bench boost. And then have 2 that double if you don't go for a big game week 33 sort of like 13-man bench boost. So yeah, again, Chess Quickies Econ, nice team, couple of tweaks that maybe you can think about. Outside of that, I really like them. Stay tuned, look out for my wildcard team immediately after the FA Cup game, and then I'll also be on live stream 3 hours before the deadline, and I can happily talk through your guys' teams as well. So keep an eye out from that. Go back and check out my game week 30 wildcard team if you want an explanation of why I'm letting you know that game week 30 is such a crucial week to wildcard, how you'll get a leg up on all your other managers and gain in rank by using it now. And yeah, obviously keep an eye out for price changes over the next week and a half to make sure that you can make the most out of your wildcard team. Thanks so much for you guys for listening. Please like this video, give us a subscribe. Really appreciate it. Just a small thing for you guys, but if you enjoyed this, it makes a huge difference to my channel. Once again, thanks so much for watching. This has been your English Aussie, and have a great week, everyone.